We had so much fun in the kitchen yesterday that we're doing it again today. And you know what? We're celebrating Crocktober. Crock-ober, tober, ober. Well, whatever it is. But pull out that slow cooker and let's get to it. Hello, I'm Leona Dooley, and this is Ebony, Ivy, and Thyme. And today we are working on a crock pot meal. And you know, I love crock pots. And heaven only knows how many I've been through. I've got all different sizes, different shapes, and you name it, I got it. And that's because it's been over quite a few years. I've accumulated, so to speak. Now, today, we're going to be putting together a bean soup, something that's warm, comforting, and simple. We're also going to put together some cornbread. We need that. And we might even think about a salad. So, let's get to it. Well, we're starting today with crock pot, and I'm using my little 6-quart crock pot. And I tell you what, this crock pot I know is at least 15 years old. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and put it on low. I'm going to add in some broth, and then I'm going to add in the beans. And these beans have been soaking overnight. So they're true navy beans, and we're going to put them in. And I'm going to cook this on high today. I'm chopping up some celery that's going to go in this soup. I'm also going to clean and chop up some carrots. We need onions, we need all those good things. So there we go, that's the celery. I'm going to put our celery in. Now today, just because I kind of got a late start, normally I would have put this on low and just let it go. But today, we're going to kick it up to high. So I have my beans that have been soaked. I'm going to pour off the soaking liquid. Now, I'm going to put those beans in. And I've been able to rinse them enough that we've gotten all the starch off. Now I'm going to add in about 6 cups of liquid. So I'm using cold water. That's about 3 1/2, almost 4. Another about 3 1/2, almost 4 cups. Okay. All right, so we've got our liquids in. Let me get our carrots, and I'm going to dice those carrots and get them scraped. They're organic, but I just like to scrape my carrots. I like to clean them up, and so let's get the vegetable peeler. These were the last in this package, and that's why we're using it up. Okay, 1. What are you doing in your kitchen today? I hope you're having a great time. I know you're back to work, and for us here in Virginia, or here in Midlothian, our kindergarten, 1st and 2nd, are going back on a hybrid schedule. So they went back to school today. And I have a granddaughter who's at that age. And while that does bother me, the fact that she's back in school, I just have to keep that in prayer that she's safe and sound in school, as well as the other students and the teachers. And I know about teachers and how uncomfortable this situation has been, having taught 36 years. It's something to think about. You know, who would have thought, especially those who have been teaching for a very long time, who would think that you'd kind of get close to the end of your career, but not necessarily at the end of your career, and that you have to deal with a pandemic. So this has been a real eye-opener for so many, and those who are having to work from home, and that's something new. Now, I'm not sure I'm going to use this whole onion because this onion was pretty big. So I'm slicing and then cutting it into smaller pieces because I really don't want chunks of onions, but we need the onions for the flavor. So I think I'm going to stop with this half onion and get everybody in the pool. Now, I'm not going to put any salt in this yet because I want our beans to be tender, and we're going to just get everything cleaned up. We're going to add some spices, and then we're going to put the top on this baby and let it go. Working on a couple of videos, and I'm trying to get them going. So let's, I've got the pepper, putting in about a teaspoon of pepper, and I'm going to add in no salt. Let's see what else we can get in. Okay, we've got I've got onion powder here. I'm going to add in about a half teaspoon of onion powder. And you know, onion powder really gives your soup a very deep flavor that is different from just, it kicks up the onion. That's the bottom line. I'm going to add in a teaspoon of Mrs. Dash, and that has all kinds of flavors in it. Okay, I didn't put in a full teaspoon, but close. And we need a little garlic powder. I'm not sure this spoon's going to fit. Oh, too big. We got a spoon. A teaspoon for our garlic powder. Okay, so I'm sprinkling that garlic powder. All right, so we've got everything in there except a little pepperoncino. Let's put a little in there. We need some. Now with my beans, I always add in a touch of tomato ketchup. I know you're thinking, why? Well, it doesn't really give it a true tomato flavor, but it does give it a background flavor that when you don't have it in there, everybody knows, because they're going, what is this soup missing? Okay, so I have my ketchup, and watch. I'm just going to take it, give it a good 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Squish. There we go. That's it. Now, I get my spoon, my trusty wooden spoon, and give that a good stir. Now, we're not finished yet. Okay. If you have bouillon cubes, then use your bouillon cubes. If not, you can use your, if you have your bouillon in a powder form, then throw in about 2 to 3 teaspoons. I'm going to use at least 2 cubes. And I'm going to take 3 out just in case, but I know 2. I'm going to let this get good and hot, taste it, and then I'll see if it needs that third one. But we have to flavor those beans. So this is one. Break your cube up so you don't have to depend on time and heat to do that. Well, that's one cube. And here's the second cube. Now, if you happen to have some fresh chicken broth or stock, you can certainly use that. But I don't have any today. So that's why I'm going to the next best thing that I can get my hands on. And you're going to see that that cube will, as you stir, you'll see that it will start to color the liquid, and it's going to be nice and bold. Now these beans are going to soak up probably half the liquid once they really get hot and come to temperature. So that's the reason why we had to make sure we had plenty of liquid, because after all, it's a soup. Now, if you decide at the end that you want to add other vegetables, you can certainly do that, but we don't with our bean soup. It is beans, some onions, your flavorings, your trinity, which is your onions, your carrots, and if you have a little garlic, you could certainly add a little garlic. But we've got our onions and our carrots and our celery. Got our trinity in place. So there we go. All right. And you know that ketchup gives it a good rich color, and you're going to be surprised because it's going to give it a very rich taste. So there we go. I'm going to put the top on this and let it go for the next 4 hours. Okay guys, let's put together some skillet cornbread. In my bowl, I have 1 cup of flour. I'm going to add in 1 cup of stone ground cornmeal. Now you don't have to use stone ground, but that just happened to be what I had, and that's what I'm using. I try to keep my cornmeal in a cold place. So most of the time, it stays in the freezer. And I like doing it that way. It keeps it free from little varmints that may decide to come and bite on the boxes or the bags. So my stone ground stays right here in its Ziploc bag. So I'm just going to seal it back up and put it back in the freezer where it normally stays. Now, okay, first, we're going to need some baking powder, and I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons. Now, this is a 4 teaspoon measure, so I'm going to need 8 of these. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 1 teaspoon. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, got my 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Now we need some baking soda, and I need a half teaspoon of baking soda. So that's 1, and that's 2. Okay, so that's our half teaspoon. Now I'm going to get my whisk, because you really need to mix these up well, because if you don't, you're going to might get a mouthful of soda or of baking powder, both of which can be very, very bitter, and you're just not going to want that. So I'm going to take the time to mix, and it's well worth your effort to mix it up. In fact, sometimes I will actually just put it through a strainer and do a little straining. And that helps to mix it up as well, because you don't want any clumps of either baking powder or baking soda. Okay, now here comes the fun part. We're going to add in a half teaspoon of salt, because we need salt. So that's going to be 2. 1, 2. Got our salt. So we've got our salt in. I'm going to do a little mixing, and since it's pink Himalayan salt, you can actually see the little pink bits throughout your cornbread mix here. Now, this is a part that some people have to make a decision about. This is sugar, and some people don't like any sugar in their cornbread, and some of us like quite a bit. So I'm going to add in about a half cup of, well, between a 1/4 cup and a half cup of sugar, because I do like mine sweet. And my sugar has gotten a little moisture in there, so I'm going to need to work on it a bit. And it happens when it's been sitting a while. So there we go. Okay. Now that's a little too much. Okay, so I'm going to put in about between a 1/4 and a half cup of sugar. You know, my dad really could cook pretty well, and he made all of the cornbread in our house, always, because that was the only cornbread I would eat as a child, was his, because he made his sweet, because that was the way his mom made hers. He was one of 14 children, and God rest her soul, but I never got to meet her. And so what I did get to learn was her technique for cornbread. So her cornbread looked like a cake. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So I loved when he fixed cornbread. So there are little bits and tips that I'm sharing with you that he gave to me, because he did all the cornbread making. All right, so we have our dry ingredients. So we're going to make a little well in there. And now it's time to add the wet ingredients. Okay, I'm mixing well, and I'm about to add 1½ cups of buttermilk into our dry ingredients. I've put a cup in, and I'm going to put another ½ cup in, but I've also added in with it the egg. And because it's part of the liquid ingredients as well, so I'm just going to pour that into the mix. You can kind of see a little bit of yellow dripping down in there, and I want to make sure that I get all of that out. I have my butter, my 2 tablespoons of butter in the microwave, and I'm going to I've got the whisk so I can stir it up, and I started with a fork. And that's just because that's what I had in my hand. So I was answering a question from the big guy, so I had to stop a minute. So sorry, guys, I got distracted. But you know, that happens in the kitchen because we're not the only ones living in a house. So I am just mixing. Now, one thing I do need to say is that you must make sure that this mixture is well mixed. You can't play with it. Now, I could have used my mixer, my hand mixer. I just didn't pull it out. I thought I could do it by hand, and I was successful with that, but it took a little arm work in order to get that done. So I'm starting with the fork, just getting it, some of it mixed up, and then I'm going to switch over to the whisk. And then I'm really going to start to mix. The one thing you do need to keep in mind, if you're using a hand mixer or a stand mixer, because of the electrical strength, you will find that those items mix so well that sometimes they almost overmix. So you have to be very careful. So we want our cornbread to be very tender. So that's the reason why I try to do it by hand rather than using any type of blender. Now, if I'm really in a hurry, then I will use the blender and just get that job done as quickly as possible. But today, I've got the time, so I'm going to take the time to go ahead and do it by hand. So here's our butter. And you know what? It came out really, really, really hot. So I'm going to have to stream some of this into my mix because I don't want to cook my eggs. And so notice I'm going to hold it high and just do a little stream of butter in. And what I could do actually is to just put it in the bottom of the pan. But I'll probably put a little bit of that in the bottom of the pan anyway. But some of it needs to go in the mix so that the cornbread has a nice buttery flavor. So as I do that, I'm giving it a really good stir because I do not want to bite into any baking powder. Now our cornbread is going to cook at 400 degrees, and it's going to cook a good 20 to 25 to 30 minutes, but mainly until it comes out clean on a toothpick. That's how I usually check it, and it's usually nice and golden brown. And I don't want to overcook it because I don't want it dry. Now what I like to do is to take butter and spread it over the top, and but I'm in a hurry right now because you're here and we're going to have to cut a piece of that cornbread. So let's get some cut. And got the plate. Let's see if I can get it out. Look at that cornbread. It came out so easy. Did you see that? Look at the crumb. It's beautiful. It really does look like a piece of cake. So I am trying to get you in close so you can see, because this girl put some butter on that cornbread and it is so good. So you know what, by the time the big guy gets to this, I will have eaten one piece of the cornbread. So there it is, my partially eaten cornbread and the actual cornbread. Before we leave our kitchen today, let me say that again, that I have enjoyed having you right here in our kitchen. But also, please remember each day to light a candle and shine a light, not only for your family, but for those around you. And I'll see you soon, right here in the kitchen of Ebony, Ivy, and Thyme.